I was a little girl.
You dream about dead guys?
Look, the sacred spells have been chiseled off. This man must have been condemned not only in this life, but in the next.
Tough break.
Yeah, I'm over. Cheers. See who's inside, shall we? You would not believe how stuffy it is in there.
The Mummy is a movie. It's not the best movie around, nor is it the best okay movie. It's just kind of there. The Mummy has plenty of things wrong with it. How can these four guys not hold back this one guy? But it's undeniably a fun movie to watch, if that makes any sense. When I ask people about it or see comments about it, the consensus seems to be that people remember it and defend it as a really good movie. I also noticed that really good movies they remember are now masterpieces. If this movie was made today, it would probably bomb. Probably due to the fact it was supposed to be a horror movie. The two producers for the film brought the idea to Universal and were like, hey, money please. Universal was only going to give them $10 million to make it though, and 6 directors later, they land at Stephen Sommers. He goes to Universal with the new idea that it isn't going to be a horror movie, but instead an adventure type movie. Universal's like, whoa, great idea. Instead of 10, here's $80 million. So they brought in director Stephen Sommers, who's made a ton of American cult classics like The Jungle Book and Deep Rising and Van Helsing, if you've ever heard of half of those before. They thought to themselves, wow, he's done such fantastic work there. Let's just give him complete artistic control so he can write and direct the movie. What a stupid idea. To essentially sum up the movie, it's about a race to get to the treasure of Hamunaptra, where they accidentally bring a mummy back to life and then have to kill it. At the very start of the movie, we get narration from another character.
Home of Imhotep, Pharaoh's high priest, keeper of the dead.
I think it's Odin Feher, however you pronounce his name. The SoundCloud rapper who plays this character that doesn't have a name. It was supposed to be Imhotep narrating, but they very quickly realized that Imhotep would have lived in Egypt and have not spoken English, so it didn't make a whole lot of sense. They make a disabled man on the boat, like 8 times more disabled. The boat catches fire and everyone jumps off and boom, random horses. I don't know how they got there, where they came from, but now they're there.
It looks to me like I've got all the horses!
Stephen has no idea how foreshadowing works. This little thing was done poorly and it is probably very easily overlooked, but it's just one example of why Stephen was just lazy making this film. Foreshadowing is a hint that the story gives you as to what's to come later. Let's pick a totally random movie that won't have any significance later in this video. Raiders of the Lost Ark. It's not the best example, but in the movie it's done kinda subtly and works with what is currently happening in the scene. He faces several challenges and creatures like spiders, traps, dead people. The only one thing that actually scares him though is snakes, and they at least try to work that into the plot.
I hate snakes, Chuck! I hate them! Go right in there!
Where are you going?
Through that wall. Just get ready to run.
Now let's look at the mummy. When entering the tomb, the characters are working on adjusting mirrors so they have light. Then all of a sudden, out of bumfuck Egypt, the fat guy goes,
Hey, look for bugs. I hate bugs.
And not even 5 minutes later he dies because of the beetle things. There was not even a point of adding the scene unless you were trying to do some forced semblance of foreshadowing. Working foreshadowing into a scene has to be the most simplest thing to do. It has to be natural, not a random statement one of the characters make. It isn't hard to do at all, and you could just see how lazy he is. The mummy establishes teleportation. When we first meet the mummy, it's with the guy with no eyes, and they all run from the room that the mummy and the guy with no eyes are in, only to run into the room with the guy with no eyes is in front of them now. I don't know how that works, except for teleportation, or again, laziness. The pacing is so garbage they burn through plot points like a raging boat fire. You We watched through the first half of the movie before they even crack open the mummy's coffin. We only get like 20 minutes of mummy's screen time total. We have most of the movie, which isn't the best, but then we have a really good final 20 minutes. So what this really tells me is Steven knows what he's doing, but then again, I'm guessing just completely lazy. We have this character, British pilot Winston Havelock. He shows up, becomes a main character, and dies in all about 6 minutes. And the saddest part is he was the most interesting character out of any other main character there was.
The aircore still stationed out here, you know what? Some bloody idiot spilled his drink.
Another problem is we never sense that any of the main characters are in any real danger because the movie is far too cartoonish to generate any genuine tension. The movie seems to never take itself seriously, and neither should we because as a thriller, it's an underwhelming effort. The Mummy's complete entertainment value lies solely on its jokey tone, and that's why when we were kids, we remember it as being fun. I mean, at least it was an original idea that he totally didn't steal. When Stephen Sommers first called the producers of The Mummy pitching the take on the story, he said, "It's kind of like Indiana Jones or Jason of the Argonauts with the mummy as a creature. I'm going to explain some plot points and you have to tell me if I'm explaining Indiana Jones or the mummy." It starts with the main character looking for treasure, but it is hindered when the bad guy shows up.
You just got promoted.
Dr. Jones, again we see there is nothing you can possess which I cannot take away.
They end up having to look for another artifact that is made out of gold and has a magical significance.
The car started. I've got it. The Golden Book of Amun-Ra is at Hamunaptra inside the statue of Horus. Take that, Bembridge scholars.
I need one of the pieces your father collected. Bronze piece about this size with a hole in it off center with a crystal. You know the one I mean?
Yeah, I know it.
There's an expert on the subject that connects the dots for the protagonist whenever the bad guys get stuck.
In this case, local tradition held that there was a golden coffin buried at the site.
The adventurer recruits a teammate who ends up having an item of significance.
You both found your puzzle box, and we've come to ask you about it.
I need one of the pieces your father collected. Bronze piece about this size with a hole in it off center with a crystal.
The item is then used to lead the main characters to the artifact's location.
You see the cartouche there? It's the official royal seal of Seti I. I'm sure of it.
The girl's an alcoholic.
What is a place like me doing in a girl like this?
They have a gunfight that starts a fire. The bad guy gets the item to only have it taken away instantly. The sun leads them to the hidden destination. The artifact causes biblical disasters. The bad guys end up dying because they opened the artifact. This was just to name a few, but I think you got the point. Another thing Steven did was take the concept of Indiana Jones and strip him down into two characters. I'm not saying this was a terrible concept and actually could have been very interesting, but Steven failed at this execution because of, again, what I assume is laziness. It might be unbelievable that Indiana Jones was both a distinguished archaeologist professor by day and treasure hunter by night, but this as a character made him interesting. To counter this, Indy also made a lot of mistakes. This made his character feel more human and relatable. Plus he has a really good character arc. Steven broke down Indy into both Evelyn and Rick. Rick being the treasure hunter while Evelyn being the brains about Egyptology. This completely devoid each character of the aspects that would have made them interesting, similar to Indy. They both just tend to make a lot of mistakes without having the charms or qualities that make them an interesting character. Steven didn't care to write in any because that probably would have been slightly harder than completely ripping off Indiana Jones, but I digress. The acting is really hit or miss. It's either poorly done or way over exaggerated. This is probably in part by the characters and how they are written and very two-dimensional, but I think Brendan Fraser said it best.
I just felt like we were completely overacting. You know, our jaw would hinge and like, you know, can you see my molars? And Steve would go, no, you don't. It's okay. Bigger is better.
In conclusion, The Mummy is undeniably a fun movie. The cast had fun making it, and we could definitely sense that watching it. The whole point of this video was just to show where it fell short. The cast worked absolutely fantastic off each other, the characters and some of the line delivery is hilarious, and you leave the movie remembering at least one of the one-liners. It feels like this movie has a heart. It was a project that people worked on together and had fun making instead of some churned out mess made strictly for profit. In my opinion, I really like this movie. That might seem weird after all the bad I just said about it, but I'm just really interested in what you guys think and how you guys remember it. Just drop a comment down below and let me know what you think.